Thank you.
I guess I pushed it a little early, but that's all right because I usually forget. So Zoe and Carolyn are both here because of Tom Knott has invited them, and Paola is here because Ron Wild has invited her.
Want a glass of water?
Welcome.
My cup's just beside the fridge.
No, I have to go brush my teeth.
See, if you're not coming back until the 9th, right? 8th or 9th?
I'm driving back on the weekend of the 6th and 7th.
Oh, okay.
So unfortunately, I'll miss the first meeting of April, and the second meeting's a Zoom meeting.
Yep.
But I'll be at the club on the 17th for the live meeting.
We're gonna go for a little walk and then I'm gonna go. See, the shirt's it's warm and it's like comfortable. It's like, doesn't really go with these baggy pants.
Fine.
So I'm trying not to wear jeans because they chafe.
Vicky, where do you live now that you said you moved to Midtown?
At Chaplin and Eglinton.
Oh,
Chaplin, Preston and Eglinton. Yeah.
so whereabouts in Chaplin and Eglinton? I'm on Duncannon.
Do you know Latimer? It's where the Shoppers is off Eglinton. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's where I live. I'm right on Latimer.
Oh, I'm right at the Slavens, just 5 doors down from the Slavens real estate.
Okay, yeah, yeah. Okay, so you're really close. Are
Yeah.
you still in Florida or are you back?
I'm still in Florida. I leave next Thursday.
Okay.
I'll be home
Joe,
next Friday.
do you happen to know any seriously good ENT guys?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
That's an oxymoron. Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, I'm a bit out of date, and most of my experience is pediatric. You wouldn't qualify.
No, okay. Very good. How's Sandy, by the way? I haven't seen hide nor hair of him for a while.
He's away.
Oh,
He's
Which Sandy McKellar?
no, Sandy Loudon.
Yeah.
Loudon.
I don't think he's back. He's away with his brother and sister, I believe, down south.
You can. You'll feed her when you get back from the walk.
Now we just need to get Ron's attention again. Oh, there he is. Look at that. Ron, we just need to unmute you.
Carolyn, does Tom play golf? Do you know?
Yes, Tom plays golf.
Well,
Oh,
no,
yeah.
I think he wouldn't admit to it.
He plays. He plays at the autism tournament that I play at.
That's it, David. Once a year.
Oh, okay. Well, we get him out twice a year. Okay, Ron, you all ready?
Full story of this guy. When we met him, like, and I'm not a pastor, I get totally, we got a cut on him like this. And he says to us, we're trying to talk, and he's like.
You good, Ron?
And
You can hear me?
Yes, can you, wait, maybe I haven't turned this mic on yet. You've got everyone's attention
Okay.
and I think, is this coming through the speakers out there? Anybody? Okay,
Very good. How many
Ding
people
it
do you have
up.
there today? Ron, how many people do you have there today?
19 members and one guest, my wife Brenda Louie.
Okay. Okay, I'd like to officially start the March 20th, 2024 Rotary Toronto Eglinton meeting. Depending on which calendar you're looking at, it is the first day of spring. Let's hope that last snowfall you had there yesterday is done for the year, but we'll keep our fingers crossed anyway. This will be the last time you see me on Zoom. I will be back in the city of Toronto on next meeting, the first April meeting, April 3rd. So I'll be back there with you. Wanted to welcome a couple of guests. As Ron had mentioned, we had 19 members. We have 11 people on the Zoom call today. We have Carolyn Knott, Tom's wife here, and Zoe Sullivan, who's a friend of Tom's he invited. And then Ron Wild's friend Paola is on the line with us here. And as he said, Brenda, his wife, is also in the audience. So welcome to everyone. Hope you enjoyed this meeting today. I would like to call upon Walter Wells, if he could, to give us the reflection for today.
Well, today I'm asking you to reflect on forgiveness. So inner peace can only be achieved when we practice forgiveness. Forgiveness is a process of selective forgetting, letting go or overlooking whatever we might think other people have done to us. You have to forgive others before you can forgive yourself. Cherishing grievances just reinforces your own feelings of guilt or unworthiness. The unforgiving mind sees itself as innocent and others as guilty. The unforgiving mind thrives on conflict and being right. In effect, the unforgiving mind sees peace as an enemy. But you can be objective and just choose to let go of bitterness and resentment. You can experience inner peace when you let go of judgments that someone else is guilty.
Thank you very much, Walter. That was lovely. We have some upcoming birthdays. So we have Walter Sutka, who's celebrating his birthday on March 28th. We also have Lars celebrating his birthday on March 31st. And we have one of our newest members, Paul Buccini, celebrating his birthday on April 1st. So I wish them all a very happy birthday. And as they all know, that's just a gentle reminder of the every Rotarian every year donation we'd love them to make towards the foundation for the year. Ron, are you up for doing the happy bucks?
I am, yes.
Okay, are there any happy bucks in the room?
You can put the can back and put it on my tab. Yeah, I do actually. I owe about $40. Okay. Actually, I have 10 happy bucks for a wonderful trip to Malaga, Costa del Sol, Spain. And there was good news and there was bad news. The good news was I stayed on a strict Mediterranean diet. The bad news was the hotel was less than 100 meters from the Mediterranean. So the strict Mediterranean diet brought in the entire buffet. Actually, it's $10 because I'm physically and financially able to make such a trip.
That working?
No.
I have 10 happy bucks because I'm looking forward to David's return from his 6-month holiday in Florida. That's right.
Not quite that long.
Okay, good.
Okay, I have $10 from Norma Davis. Norma, as we speak, is working at the Allen Gardens Food Bank. And the food bank just received, I think, a $5,000 donation from our club. And Norma said it's absolutely overwhelming the need that she's experiencing today. And she wants to thank members from the bottom of her heart for the generosity in supporting the food bank.
Might be it for the room, David.
Okay, is there anybody on Zoom who has any happy bucks they want to share? I can't see everybody, so just speak up if you have anything.
Oh, there's lots on Zoom. Like,
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of us on. Okay, it doesn't look like there's anybody on Zoom that wants to give us any happy bucks. So Ron, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce our speaker for today.
great. I would feel more comfortable if this mic was working. But you can hear me with this
Yeah, we
volume,
can hear
David?
you. Yeah.
Okay. I guess in the room, we'll have to project. Oh, maybe not. Maybe this actually is working.
Got your phone with you?
Okay. Introducing the speaker is often a pleasure, especially when it's a friend of yours. Brenda and I met Rosanna on Price Street at Young, just up the block here at the running room a few years ago. When we were running with the running room's Sunday morning long distance run. And the first run that I had with Rosanna, we get talking and I find out she's working at Baycrest, and I'm excited about that. And I mentioned that I had done, as an artist, one of the Baycrest brains that you see as a part of their fundraising effort. So we had something in common like right away. And I'd like to say that we became fast friends, but really we didn't, because Rosanna became a very fast runner and I'm still a very slow runner. So we are friends, and we've stayed in touch. Rosanna and her husband, Brad Bushbaum, are brain scientists at the Baycrest Center. They came here to be part of that from California. Rosanna's first degree was from UC San Diego and did her master's at Stanford, and is now leading one of the groups at Baycrest. And I know, just following her on Twitter, that the hippocampus is a big part of the brain in Rosanna's life. She and Brad have two very active children, including a son, Dylan, and a daughter, Raina, who is a dancer like 7 days a week, kind of dancer. So they're very active and very busy people. Just to close on a running story, Rosanna's run 10 full marathons, and 4 of those have been Boston, which is an unbelievable. So in her thing, she said in her spare time, she likes long distance running. First of all, I don't think she has any spare time. And second of all, when she says she goes running, she's an elite runner. So I'll welcome her up here to talk about the work that she does at Baycrest. This is Dr. Rosanna Olsen. Welcome.
So Ron, she's going to have to share her screen on her computer.
Okay, hi, everybody.
I think this might be working. So do you want to? Sure.
Ron, we lost. Oh, there we go. Ron, we can't hear Rosanna.
Okay, David, what do we need to do here now?
Because you closed your laptop, because you were hosting.
Yeah.
We need to have your laptop open.
Oh, I thought just open. Okay.
When you close it, it turned it off. Unless you unless you close it, and then she can she can turn her volume on her computer.
Not yet.
If she unmutes, we can we can hear.
We can hear you.
I think
What
she
about
is
seeing
unmuted.
her presentation?
We
What
can
about
see her
seeing
presentation.
David? Oh, I guess I can.
You're not seeing it? We're seeing it.
Okay.
Can you see my presentation and hear me?
We can see your presentation, but we can barely hear you.
Is your volume turned right up?
I didn't check my audio because I didn't.
What can we do this? Thanks. You need to be put your laptop in front of
I can't hear them until they ask their questions, so maybe I'll join the audio.
Okay. You know how.
So right now I have my audio here because I don't want feedback. But if you have a question, if you're in the Zoom audience and you have a question, please write it in the chat. And
Okay.
at the end of the presentation, I'll pay special attention to the questions in the chat.
Yeah, Ron, just leave your phone close to her so we can hear her.
Everybody? Good idea.
Oh, no. Then this phone apparently needs to be here. Try now.
Okay. So we move to the phone, which has an audio input. Can the Zoom audience hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you barely, but we can hear you.
Go out. Go ahead.
We'll try again. Can the Zoom audience hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, good. Thank you. Okay, so I can't hear you. Only Ron has your audio hooked up to his headset. So if you have a question, just please write it in the chat or signal to Ron towards the end of the talk if you have a question, and I'd be happy to take questions from the Zoom audience. For now, I'm going to start my presentation to the group, and I would welcome questions at any point because I really want this to be as exciting and engaging for all of you, for everyone in the audience. And so rather than be just a formal lecture, please raise your hand accordingly if you would like to ask a question during the presentation itself. I'm totally happy to do that. So as Ron introduced, I'm a scientist at Baycrest at the Rotman Research Institute, a psychologist by training, but I also study the brain. So I study how the brain forms new memories, and I also study how the brain changes with age. And that's the topic that I'm here to talk to you about today, but I'm happy to, again, go into all the different areas of my research if anybody would like to ask me about that. So just a brief introduction about some of the research that I do. Ron introduced the word hippocampus, and the hippocampus is a part of the brain that's very special, and that we know that this is a part of the brain that if it gets damaged from a stroke, or if you have to have a tumor resected from this region of your brain, you do have problems with your memory. And so we've learned that from studies that were conducted back in the 1950s, when people had this part of the brain removed, they could no longer form new memories. So even though they were perfectly fine before the procedure, once this part of the brain was removed, they could no longer form new memories. And so what I've been doing in my lab is I've been using structural MRI to study the types of memories that are formed by this region of the brain in healthy individuals. We also study how this part of the brain changes with age. So we use MRI, and this is just a fancy colored image of the hippocampus to show that there might be regions of the hippocampus that change more quickly or more gradually with different types of aging. It's also an area of the brain that is affected by dementia. So dementia is an umbrella term for different types of neurodegenerative disease. And I can talk more about the different types of dementia that affect that area of the brain. I also study functional activity within the brain itself in healthy young adults and healthy older adults. And we look to see how different networks of the brain that talk to the hippocampus, so areas of the brain that are structurally and functionally connected to the hippocampus, how those work together to form new memories and to retrieve memories. And I also do a little bit of eye tracking research. Eye tracking is not a brain imaging technique, but it's a more cost-effective technique that allows you to non-invasively measure what people are viewing when they're viewing pictures on a screen and when they're trying to form new memories. And so one of the things we're interested in doing is use eye tracking to better understand
how people create memories and retrieve memories, and how eye movements help facilitate that process. Sometimes we also put the two together where we study eye tracking in the MRI. So we see what parts of the brain are involved in the generation of those eye movements and how that helps our memories. So today I'm going to talk about how our brains change as we age. As we all know, we change physically as we age. We also change mentally or cognitively as we age. And so you might expect that I'm going to give you all bad news today, and I hope you don't come away with that message from this lecture. It's not all bad news. It's not that everything changes as we age, but there's only selective or certain parts of our cognition that change as we age. And certain parts of our cognition actually get better with age. And so I want you to come away with that message today, is that yes, it is true, certain things slow down, certain aspects of our memory do get worse, that's without a doubt, but there's other aspects of our lives that get richer and richer as we age, and even cognitive aspects get better as we age. So before I get into that, this is a little bit technical, but I just want to give this information because when you're reading about studies in the newspaper, you might come across some of these terms, and I just want people to understand what those terms are so they can be critical of the studies that they hear about. And so one of the things that I'll just get to in just 1 minute, one of the things that I want you to think about is, how do we study aging? Let's just think about how we study it. Well, we can take an individual who's young, who's in their 20s, a group of individuals who are young. We can take a group of individuals who are older, in their 70s, 80s, 90s, etc., and we can compare those two groups. And we might find group differences. We might find that this group is better at one type of task than another group. But think about what else is different across those people. They grew up in different, totally different times in the world, especially studies that were done. Some of the people that are in their 90s and 80s now, they were around during World War II. They came across many different adverse situations in their lives. So you're not just studying age when you're doing a cross-sectional study. So I just want people to keep that in mind. If they read about studies in the newspaper and they see something where it's a cross-sectional study, so they're studying one group and another group, there's a lot of differences that you have to take into consideration when you're interpreting the results from such a study. And you can similarly study people in different decades, so 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and I'll show you some results from that. And the thing that the technical term for what I just described is that these types of studies are subject to what's called cohort effects, because cohorts of people change across time due to their life experiences and due to the things that were available to them at that time.
Yes.
Things like access to education, access to nutrition, all of these things are changing across time. So studying people in their 20s, people in their 80s, there's a lot of differences. So the other way that if you hear about a research study studying aging, you might hear the word longitudinal. And the word longitudinal means that you're studying people across different time points, the same individuals. I'm studying person A when they're 20, when they're 25, when they're 30, when they're 35, etc. And then I can better attribute the changes or the differences in those test results to that person's age. Of course, there's many things that are affecting their life and affecting their cognition, but at least we can get rid of some of those cohort effects that I was speaking about before. Of course, the limitation is these types of studies are very expensive to do because you have to track people over time, you have to bring them back, you have to make sure that you have to consider any sort of health difficulties that they've encountered along the way. Some people move, some people change their phone number. And so these are studies that are very difficult to complete, but so important for us to better understand aging. The other thing that can happen is when you're studying, okay, I'll speak a little louder. I'll try to get a little closer to the mic. Does that help? Was that your question about you can't hear?
No, I can hear better now, but that wasn't my question.
Okay. I think that they increased the volume. I'm going to stand closer to the mic. Thank you for pointing that out. So what I was just saying was when you're comparing these longitudinal studies, you get rid of some of the cohort effects, which is good. They're more expensive, they're harder to conduct. The other thing that can happen is when you're studying people over time, the people who drop out of the studies, something is happening to those people that's causing them to drop out, and that might bias your results. So whenever you're reading about studies on a certain population, think about that. Try to see what would the dropout effects like. Okay, how does that affect?
Can't hear on Zoom right now.
I can't hear either yet. Ron, we can't hear on Zoom.
Clever about how we test people so that they don't catch on to the different tests that we're giving them and learn from them.
It goes in and out on Zoom.
No, we're good now. No, we lost her again.
Yeah. So you are probably better than most 30-year-olds or most 20-year-olds at reaction. It's a game, yes. It's a game that requires semantic, what the technical term is semantic knowledge, but the layman term is vocabulary. Your vocabulary gets better as you age. The more you read, the more you're around other people that read, engage in meaningful conversations with them, the better your vocabulary gets, and the better you get at creating connections. So I don't know if that's actually progress. I don't know if anybody's actually studied the data connection. But my intuition or
This is very disappointing.
I know, Ron has,
older sometimes show evidence of more wisdom and creativity in their thought. So you're able to draw upon your experiences in different ways that younger people just don't have. They can't draw upon their experiences because they haven't had them yet in their lives. And so that's another way that our lives get richer and our function changes. The areas that don't do as well as we age are kind of the things that you think of when you think of like holding things in mind for a short amount of time while you're especially when you're distracted. Those are the types of memory that are more fragile and more susceptible to effects of age, where if you
To remember something for a short time, like a phone number, you're probably better off writing it down than trying to remember it, because that type of memory is going to decline with age. Also, what people think of as long-term memory or episodic memory, so memory through your life episodes. Well, you still might have some really strong episodes that you remember very clearly from your childhood or from your early adulthood. Some of those episodic memories sort of lose the richness that they originally had as you're aging. And it's probably because that area that I mentioned, the hippocampus, is changing structurally and functionally. And it's not able to retain some of those same connections with the rest of the brain that are required in order to have that sort of rich, intense memory that you had when you originally formed it. That's not to say you don't remember the episode. And in fact, you probably, especially the things that you like to tell stories about or things that you like to reflect on with your family, you're going to still remember those episodes. But you might not remember them in the same vividness. So you might not be able to remember the exact color that somebody did, but you will remember the importance and the significance of that life episode. The other thing that impacted aging, normal aging, is the ability to remember face name associations. So we've all experienced this. It's difficult, especially after you know hundreds of thousands of people. You've met so many people over the years. Let's say you see a colleague that you haven't seen in 4 years. You haven't seen them since before COVID. It's very, very common to forget that person's name, and that's a normal type of forgetting that happens to everybody. But it probably happens a little more often when you're in your 60s and 70s than it did when you were in your 30s and 40s. And then again, that's that verbal knowledge that is what increases with age. So I'm looking forward to getting better at connections. Oh, one more thing to say is that the graph that I'm showing you on the right comes from cross-sectional studies. So remember, that's the type of study that's tainted somewhat by cohort effects. What about longitudinal studies? We still see some declines when you study people longitudinally. So this is an example of cross-sectional data. And then some of those differences go away when you test people longitudinally, but some of that might be from practice effects. So we actually try to adjust for that. But by and large, most of the longitudinal studies have confirmed a lot of what's been found with cross-sectional studies, where researchers believe that cognition is pretty stable until about age 60. And then after age 60, that's where you start to see some decline.
But again, this is an average. This is all people. Some of those people might go on to develop Alzheimer's disease or another neurodegenerative disease. We don't know because they're tested at a certain time point where they're still healthy. But just keep in mind that everybody's different and everybody is going to age differently. And this next slide is sort of an example of that, where everybody has different cognitive abilities when they're young, and everybody has a different trajectory as they age. And so some people might start here and end up here. Some people might start here and end up here. Some people might start here and end up here. Some people might start here and end up down here. And it's just that everybody has a trajectory, and it might have to do with lifestyle factors, diseases modifying the brain, and all that. I'm just noticing that there's messages in the chat, and hopefully the echo is being challenging with different buttons. Apologies for that.
Very difficult to hear.
No, Ron, there we go.
Yeah. What's your question?
One thing about our age group, let's say our age group and older, we weren't necessarily drug users.
Mm-hmm.
Marijuana or cocaine and so on.
Mm-hmm.
But immediately after us, and into the 60s,
Mm-hmm.
you know, drugs became very, very popular, and they're still very popular now.
Mm-hmm.
You expect to see it change in how people are retaining their memory and so on. The next age group, because they essentially fried their brains.
It's a great question. It's not my area of expertise. I'll just say that I can speculate. I think it's gonna probably depend on how heavy a user you are, and it's probably gonna be correlated with other mental health risk factors. So you might see that if somebody is relatively mentally well, using drugs, they're probably not going to see as much of an impact. But if they've had other risk factors or other types of mental illnesses and were a very heavy user, you might see, and I mean, we already know that alcohol, even alcohol use is is not good for many diseases in terms of your outcomes. So any heavy drug use, even legal drugs like alcohol, probably will have an effect. But yeah, that is the type of cohort effect where you might see differences across generations depending on people's usage. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
David, maybe they should remove the phone.
No, it's not it, Stephen.
Me personally, I haven't as my own anecdotal research because I'm a runner, but I will touch on, I have a slide later on that has investigated it. Yeah. So we do know that exercise is a positive, has a positive effect on people's health generally. And generally, also help your brain.
Symptoms, even though I have a later, there's specific type of dementia that's probably most associated with cardiovascular disease.
Will the recording be better or will it be just the same?
Exactly the same. It's because she's moving, I think.
Yet about whether it can decrease the risk of Alzheimer's disease. I think the jury is still out on that. all types of dementia definitely go down if you group them all together. But specifically for Alzheimer's disease, we don't have a specific mechanism, especially for prevention. However, we do know that it helps, you're gonna have better kind of cognitive reserve. So even if you do, there's many things that we can do to improve our health, so that even if we do face dementia later on, you're gonna be better off and you're gonna be better able to sort of withstand the negative impacts of dementia, or you might get it later. Yeah, good question. So the other thing that is just the point to make here is that people kind of start out more similar to one another, and as people age, the variance sort of increases. And maybe you've noticed that with some of your friends that you've known for a long time. You might notice in your group of friends that you all kind of started out kind of in the same place, and that some people have aged well and some people have aged less well. And that's just a normal part of life. And that's just, you know, part of my job is to figure out, well, who are the people, what are the people that are aging well? What are they doing? And how can we promote that in everyone? So this is a slide that's actually was done by my husband. So Ron mentioned that my husband is also a neuroscientist, and he uses a lot of functional neuroimaging, which is allowing us to look at the brain activity throughout the brain, not just in the hippocampus, but throughout the entire brain. And what he does is he shows people small movie clips while their brains are being scanned. And he has people watch those movie clips repeatedly. And then he just shows a blank screen. And then he says, can you please imagine that movie clip that you just saw? So let's say you've watched one of the popular movie clips that often people use is there's a scene from Hitchcock, Bang Bang, You're Dead. It's been studied actually in tens of thousands of people in the world have been studied watching this video clip. And so you imagine that video clip and they're scanning your brain while you're imagining it. And the more similar the brain pattern is when you're remembering that image to when you viewed it, the more likely you are to say that you experience the vividness, that you can actually picture that image very clearly in your mind's eye, showing that it's called recapitulation. So you recapitulate the same patterns of brain activity that were present when you were viewing that image, you're bringing them back online. And that's the part that we think is really critical for these vivid memories. As you age, older adults usually will, and again, these are cross-sectional studies that have shown that older adults will often recall the gist of the memory, but not necessarily all the vivid details. And this brain imaging study has isolated some of the brain regions that have activated differently in older adults compared to young adults that are responsible for these differences in remembering. So getting to your question, how does cardiovascular fitness relate to cognition in later life? We know that people who are more physically fit tend to have more preserved gray matter as they age. But the thing that we haven't really been able to nail down is whether you can take somebody who hasn't been physically fit throughout their life, give them an exercise intervention, and can that improve them already? You know, we need to get to the point where hopefully we can get a type of intervention that can be given to somebody so that they can improve their cognition. And that's the part that's been a little bit trickier to find. But we know that lifestyle factors seem to be protective. So, you know, start early and keep doing it. We also know there's other types of what we call modifiable risk factors, one of them being exercise, but there's other modifiable risk factors. So one really huge one is not to smoke cigarettes or cigars or anything. So stopping smoking is a really important it has really important health benefits for you in all areas. Some of these, you know, they call them modifiable, but sometimes you can't help it, right? So, you know, preventing head injury, but some people are going to have head injuries. It's not something that you can totally prevent. But if you can, always obviously bike with your teach your kids and grandkids to bike with a helmet on, et cetera. That's going to be a protective risk factor. Maintaining frequent exercise, avoiding excessive alcohol, reducing or managing depression. So if you are having a depressive episode, go see your doctor. You can treat that, and that is also going to be protective. Treating hearing impairments, so age-related hearing loss or non-age-related hearing loss, both are associated with changes in cognition. So it's important to try to treat that. We don't know if that is a central effect or whether it's actually due to decreased social engagement. So we know that as some people age, if they do experience age-related hearing loss, sometimes they reduce their social activity as a result. So that probably also just is another additional factor. So keep that in mind. Attaining high levels of education have also been associated with positive or protective effects. And this graph just sort of shows, sorry, it's a little bit, I hate showing this kind of graph, but it does just show that some of these are probably acting on the primary brain disease, and other of them are doing what I described before, where they're just increasing your ability to deal with the disease as opposed to treating the disease itself, but all can help with dementia, decreasing your risk for dementia. This says preventing. We can't, there's nothing yet that we can do 100% to prevent it, but we decrease our risk. So
Sorry,
yeah.
One question.
For sure.
One neuroscientist that I listened to recommended supplementation with omega-3s. Is that a good idea? She was actually recommending upwards of 2 grams a day.
Yeah. I don't know. That's definitely not my area of expertise. I would ask your family doctor just to make sure that they also recommend it. Omega-3s, I think, are pretty safe. There are other supplements out there, though, that you want to be careful that they don't contraindicate any of your other medications that you may be taking. So just be careful with that you always run by any new supplement by your family physician before taking it, because you want to make sure it's not going to interfere with anything else that you're taking, if you're taking anything. Omega-3s, yes, there's been many positive effects associated with them, and certainly helping nutrition, we know, and having a nutritious diet, we think is protective. So I would say that it's probably not going to hurt as long as it's not interfering with any other medication. Yeah.
You have any more slides you want to do, or should we take questions? There's just a couple minutes left.
Yeah, we can switch to questions. Yeah.
Or is there anything else you want to finish with, or?
I will end with, so I'm not going to tell you about this, but I will just say, one thing about brain training games, Connections, it's a fun game to play. There's also these things called brain training games, which are games in which are purported to maintain your brain health. They're not hurting you. If it's a fun activity for you to do, by all means, do those fun activities that you like to engage with. But so far, there's been poor, what we call transfer to the real world. But even if you're getting better at those games, you might not really see any benefit. Your episodic memory is not really going to get that much better, probably, from playing these games. Another member of the audience was also curious about some of the drugs that are in the pipeline right now that are being tested. So at Baycrest, we have a clinical trials unit where we're testing some of these drugs. So these are drugs they're called amyloid clearing drugs. Amyloid clearing drugs are removing the bad proteins that are accumulating in your brain if you have Alzheimer's disease. What we've seen so far with these drugs is some of them have done a very good job of removing the proteins from your brain. And one of them, the one called lecanemab, showed that in people with dementia, they showed a slowing of the decline. So the people that were not taking the drug showed a steeper decline. The people that were taking the drug still declined, unfortunately, but they didn't decline as quickly as the people that were taking the placebo. So it's good news, but we're definitely not there yet. We're definitely not to the point where we can say that we can totally treat Alzheimer's disease, but we're doing our best, and we're working very hard every single day to try to get to the place where we have drugs that work. Yeah.
You, the statement up there is very definitive that says there's no cure for
Mhm.
dementia.
Mhm.
Is there any research being done to try and figure out a way to rejuvenate the brain cells that the amyloid has killed?
Definitely. So, right now they're still very much in the experimental stages, and they're mostly being done in animals at this point. But we do have not drug interventions, but we do have interventions where people are trying to inject new cells into the brain in order to promote cell growth. The problem is, though, with Alzheimer's disease, you're not just killing cells, you're killing connections to the cells, you're killing, there's other things that the disease is doing to your brain. So unfortunately, it's complicated. You can't just act on one part of the brain system. There's many different facets to the brain that are being affected, including changes in vasculature, changes to the CSF, or the clearance system of the brain. And all of those probably need to be targeted if we are going to cure dementia. So disease modifying treatments at this point, we're much closer to those. So we're much closer to the target of slowing down dementia. It will be some time, I believe, until we can find a cure for dementia, because we are at this point where it affects so many different parts of the brain, and it has to be targeted from all different angles. Yes.
Dr. Olsen.
Methodology. You mentioned that you were participating in drug trials. And I would imagine that you're collecting massive amounts of data, and you have to employ data scientists,
Yes.
data analytics.
Yes.
When if this person who is doing your data analytics, are they working with the drug company, or are they working with the hospital? Because I've had a couple of lectures on data analytics, and I have to tell you that I've become a little skeptic about the results of drug trials, especially involving international partners, because many countries they don't have to reveal their algorithm.
Very astute question, and I'm glad you asked it. And I'm glad that you're skeptical, because these are important things to consider. I myself am not involved in drug studies, but there is a clinical units trial at Baycrest. The clinical units trial actually doesn't just do drug studies. They're involved in a number of interventions, non-pharmaceutical interventions as well, because we don't know that pharmaceuticals are the answer yet. That's definitely not clear from this current data. The other thing about lecanemab and Aduhelm is there are serious side effects to those drugs. There's serious side effects.
The drug company that was involved in the.
There's many.
Okay.
Yeah, there's many that make these drugs. So many pharmaceutical companies actually about 5 to 10 years ago gave up on making drugs for dementia because they hit so many dead ends. There's now more hope. So drug companies, of course, they're in it for the buck, right? They want to make money, and they realized they were dumping so much money into drugs that weren't working that they actually pulled out of dementia drugs, and they said, let's focus on cholesterol, let's focus on other diseases that are low-hanging fruit that we know we can make money off of. But dementia, the problem was they were hitting dead ends. They were finding that they were dumping millions of dollars, maybe billions of dollars into these drug trials that were going nowhere. It was really only in the last 5 years that there was this glimmer of hope that was seen. But I'm going to tell it to you straight. It was just a glimmer. Okay, so we saw for the first time some slowing, but still these people are still dying. They're still, they still have the disease. So you have clinical trials that are run by centers like Baycrest, and they are helping provide the infrastructure, but they're not beholden to any one drug company. And the people that analyze the data do not show the data to the drug company before they analyze it. People like myself, we're doing this because we're not seeing any of that cash. We are doing this because we want to help people. And so, and we're also very much beholden to the methods and the scientific method itself. It's different if the drug company itself is doing the analysis, and you're very astute to question who is analyzing this data. So that's a very important question. Even just the way that it's presented in the popular press is very important and very interesting to study, because this particular drug, it's giving people hope, but there's serious side effects that I didn't mention yet. So unfortunately, about half of the people that were on this drug also had another brain problem due to the drug itself. So even though it's helping the problem with dementia, it was causing another problem. That was, luckily treatable. And as long as people are getting proper care, they're going to be able to catch it. But it is very important to keep that in mind and to consider those questions. So thank you for that.
We'll try an online questions. Stephen Bianco, did you want to?
Hi. Yes, hi, Dr. Olsen. Very interesting. I know, of course, we're all interested as we get older in knowing how we're going to combat this kind of thing if it's going to affect us. But research is being done all over Toronto, all over Canada, the States, Europe, Israel, and places like that, where they've got advanced medical experts. Is there any kind of clearinghouse where you all get together and discuss what you're discovering, so that we make sure that absolutely the best results are being found?
Great question, Stephen. Yes, there is. If you go to the alzheimersassociation.org on the web, alzheimersassociation.org is a wonderful organization. So is the Alzheimer's Society of Canada, but alzheimersassociation.org is more central in that it gets more information from all international partners, and it helps assemble the information that's being discovered each year. Every 6 months, the Alzheimer's Society, every year they have a meeting where the latest findings are presented, and the Alzheimer's Association is incredibly supportive. They are making sure that every research finding that is relevant to Alzheimer's disease is presented in a way that's understandable to the lay audience and to the people that are going to benefit from it. So it's an excellent resource. And I would look at, depending on how much information you want, you can kind of get the lay summary from the website, but they even have forums if you want to really get into it and ask. You can even post your questions onto the forum and get experts from all over the world to answer those questions. So I've seen researchers that, I'm shocked that they take the time to answer these questions, because they're very, very busy people, but they care deeply about these questions, and they have worked with the Alzheimer's, of course, they're supported by the Alzheimer's Society and the Alzheimer's Association, so they're beholden to them in that way, but they are very passionate about getting this information out. And so I would say that's the best one. And pretty much anywhere around, like you mentioned, Israel, you mentioned other countries, Germany and Sweden are also really big centers for the research. And all of the people that do that research attend that meeting. It's taking place in Philadelphia this year. And there's a lot of really important information that's disseminated there. I hope that answered your question.
Again, the website was which one?
Alzheimer's Association.
Okay, thank you very much indeed.
So can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Yes. You said that you did research with eye movements and memory.
Yes.
I know that eye movements are used to cure PTSD.
Yes.
Can you comment on the connection between eye movements and forming memories?
I certainly can do that. So the question was, she wanted to know more about the research that I mentioned at the very beginning of my talk, where I said that I study eye movements. And the way that I've been studying eye movements is in the formation of memories and in the retrieval of memories. And what the audience member asked specifically was, she has heard about a type of treatment that is for people with post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. that actually uses eye movements during memory retrieval to try to actually erase those traumatic memories. I'm not an expert in that particular type of therapy, but I can try to speculate about the mechanism by which that could work. The reason why we think that there are effects of eye movements on memory is because we know that, at least in humans, the way we explore our world is primarily through our eyes. And so the way that we're encoding information is visually. In other species, like rats, they're encoding information tactilely and using olfaction. But humans are very visual creatures. We're getting information about our world through our eyes. So our brains have developed so that the oculomotor, the systems that are involved in eye movements and getting information with our eyes, are interconnected with our memory systems fundamentally. And so that's how we know that eye movements can be sort of this tool that we can use to activate memories and potentially erase memories. I don't know the effectiveness of that technique for treating PTSD, but I can speculate that it's done appropriately. You might be able to activate a memory, make it more vulnerable, and use eye movements to try to weaken that memory. It's very difficult, but it's something that obviously people who suffer from PTSD would want to pursue because it could benefit them.
Is that the one that's called EMDR?
Yes, that's the, I couldn't remember the acronym, but
Yeah.
yes, it is called EMDR.
I know.
Yeah.
I forget what it was.
Yes, it dampens.
There's so many more questions.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, David's telling us we need
Yeah.
to wrap up. I know you probably got to get back quickly, but at the end of the meeting, you have a minute or two to, I know Walter has been so patient.
Sure, yes.
But okay, back to you, David.
Walter wants to play connections with me.
Thank you.
Walter, we got to wait. You got to do that with Rosanna, just the two of you.
Yes.
Yeah, David, go ahead,
Yes.
David.
Yeah, I'm going to call upon Stephen Stein to officially thank Dr. Olsen for her presentation today. I know everyone could spend another hour on this, but I think we have to close it down. I apologize.
No problem.
Thank you for an extraordinary session. I'm not going to impute anything to anybody, but a beautiful lecture on aging at a Rotary Club. Who would have ever thought? Well, a couple of things. First of all, I love it as a Canadian when top-notch Americans like you and your husband come up here. I'll offer you citizenship if the election turns out wrong in November.
Right.
Also, I gotta say, it's an interesting trade because I have a nephew who's a psychiatrist at the University of California in San Diego.
Ah, nice.
So
Small world.
yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, thank you for a really wonderful presentation. I'm glad Ron's with you because he can update us on what's going on.
Yeah.
I really am fascinated and best of luck.
Thank you.
We may have to have Dr. Olsen come back and speak to us again because I think there's more to be discussed. So we may have to find some time for that. We really do appreciate that. Dr. Olsen, I don't know if you want to stay. We're almost at the end of the meeting. We have a couple things we have to go over from a business perspective, but if you have to leave, you're more than welcome to leave us now. Ron, I'm just going to need you to set up your computer again, if you could.
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to be very quick on my announcements because I know we have a whole bunch of committee stuff to follow up on and we're tight. So we are looking for a member who has some interest in social media who would be interested in helping us post club activities on social media. If there is anyone who has any type of interest on that, please reach out to me because Sarah has found that it's really too difficult with her starting to start a new business and her activities going on that she doesn't have a lot of time for that. So we're looking for someone in the short term to help us with postings on social media. So please reach out to me if you could. I'm also going to include my follow-up email that the Rotary Club of Whitby Sunrise sent out an email, I think, to everyone in the district in regards to their Dominican Republic International Project. And they're hosting a virtual meeting on Thursday at 7:30 via Teams. If you're interested in being a part of that, I think there's going to be an on the ground type of experience as well associated with this. So it's not just a financial donation, but there's all the information out is going to be in my follow-up email. So look for that. And also, Lisa does apologize. I don't know if Lisa's there today or not. She said she might be able to make it, but I'm going to speak on her behalf, even if she is there. Lisa's going to be sending out the dues invoices to people that have not received them as yet, because I know a lot of people have not paid their second half of the dues for the Rotary year, or they don't know what the amount is because they joined us late in last year in the calendar year. So please look for those. But she does apologize because of her medical treatment she's been having. She's a little behind on that, but please look for those in your coming from Lisa. Okay, on to community updates or committee updates. I have community service first, and that's coming from Josefa online. So Josefa, I'm going to pass it off to you.
Okay. So I'll run through this quickly. It's just a little update. On Friday, February 23rd, 6 of us volunteered at New Circles to sort clothing for their GLOW program. That's the Gently Loved Outfits to Wear program. And as we've talked about before, New Circles provides comprehensive skills training and settlement support to newcomers, refugees, and equity-deserving individuals and families. This past Monday, Dawn made another delivery to the Good Shepherd's Meal Program of 110 sandwiches, including brownies, cookies, apples, oranges, and bananas. And thank you to Ganese, Norma, Gloria, and Dawn for putting this together. The next delivery is on April 1st. On Friday, March 8th, Ron, Anna, and I spent the day volunteering to clean and prepare homes for Habitat for Humanity. It was a really busy day as people were moving in the same day and in the following days afterwards. We were presented with the new Habitat Rotary volunteer shirts, which David circulated in photos last week. And those shirts will be worn by hundreds of volunteers for the Habitat Restore. We were also told that the work boots we were wearing came from the donation that our club made last year. And finally, Thursday, March 14th, as I heard Jackie saying, Norma presented the Allen Gardens Food Bank with $5,000 from our club. And as Norma noted, the need for support of food banks continues to increase. So it's really important that we keep doing that. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Josefa. And I'm also going to ask Jim Moore to give us an international committee or service committee update, if he could, please. And Ron, you're going to have to open up your screen because you're only seeing your digital face.
Go ahead, Jim. Okay, I'm President David, fellow members and guests. Very brief report on the International Service Committee this month. We've had a busy past few months, and you've all heard as we've presented the different motions for supporting projects. Basically, these projects are kind of in the implementation stage now, going on well. And there we're talking about water systems in schools in Bujiri, Uganda, and the vocational rehab project in Zimbabwe. I'm looking forward, as I'm sure others of you are, at the Whitby Sunrise presentation tomorrow night about an opportunity for a project in Dominican Republic. And we do have a few dollars left in our budget, so we'll take a look at that and see what we can do. And that's a quick report. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. And now I'm going to ask Lionel to come up. He has two motions he needs to bring to the membership on behalf of the youth and vocational.
Loud. Yeah, these two motions were presented to the board last night, voted on and approved by the youth committee. And because they exceed $2,000, I have to present them to the membership for a vote and approval. So one is that our club approve the funding of Covenant House for $3,750 to provide care packages, including all housekeeping items, for 3 youth who are moving from the residence of Covenant House in downtown Toronto to independent living in community apartments across the city. And these are kids that have progressed through their, what they call a rites of passage program and qualify to move it independently, shown a sense of responsibility in being able to accomplish this. Students will be responsible for paying for the rent, which is done on a very reduced basis, and their food as well. They'll pay for their food. A lot of these youth have full-time, some of them have full-time jobs, some have part-time jobs as they continue their education, which is very good. So what I need, if there are no questions, I need somebody to second this and pass the motion for approval. Jim, thank you very much. All approved? Any opposed? This motion is passed. The second motion has to do with approving the funding of $3,000 for Variety Village for the purchase of sporting equipment, which is spread across all their programming departments. And Variety Village is a well-run organization that's been running for about 40 or 50 years. In the city of Toronto, it's located out on Kingston Road, and they have a very, very wide variety of sporting programs, particularly dedicated to kids with disabilities. But in fact, the whole site is open to any individuals in that community, and very successfully run, I must say. So the services include children in motion, after school camps, one-on-one support, and they run a Volt hockey program, wheelchair basketball day camps, and a Little League baseball club. So it's quite a variety of things that we're contributing the equipment to, which will be self-sustaining. It'll be good equipment, and it will reduce risk injury and improve the overall performance of these kids. So no questions on this one. I'll ask for a seconder on it as well. All approved? Any opposed? This motion is passed then. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lionel. And last but not least, I have Nan Campion, who's going to come up and talk about an environmental initiative that's going on for Earth Day. If she's there.
Yeah, yep, she's coming.
Okay.
As loud as you can.
Talk as loud as I can. Okay, can everybody hear me? Very brief announcement. As you know, Earth Day is coming up, 22nd of April. We've agreed to join with a number of other Rotary clubs nearby on Great Lakes watershed cleanup. We will be doing it on April the 21st. Some are doing the following weekend. So we're April the 21st between about 9:30 and 1. Now, in talking to the fellow with Don't Mess with the Dawn from last year, I told them we didn't want to do something that was as difficult as we had last year and off on our own. But in talking to him, he didn't make it clear to me that that spot is behind Loblaws, and the spot where you really do the cleanup that's less pulling out weeds and stuff that's really tough is a different location. So the address I gave you so far, please ignore. I'll be sending out another announcement and we'll get it all sorted out. The last thing I would say is, would you please let me know if you're coming so we know how many people we have? Walter has already signed up, Walter Wells. Thank you so much. And if everybody could let me know if they're coming, we'll hopefully have a really good turnout. Thank you.
Thank you, Nan. Is there anyone else on Zoom or in the room that has an announcement for the membership right now?
Unless we just want to remind people about the golf tournament.
Okay, that's coming up in September. We got lots of time on that. Anything, Ron, in there?
No one here, no.
Okay, great. So thank you for everyone staying an extra 5 minutes on this. We are going to close the meeting out. Note that next week is a RAW, so Rotary After Hours at the Duke of Kent. We'll be meeting upstairs at 5:30. It has been confirmed. Spoke to them today, so we are good to go. So everyone have a great week, and we will see you at RAW, or I will see you in person on April 3rd. Thank you, everybody. Have a great week. Thanks, Ron.
Yeah, sorry for all the problems.
No problem. No problem. We'll figure it out. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
one quick question. So